Hi, I'm Tawanda Lioga, your trauma informed mental health social worker. And yeah, it's been a while since I actually did a video where I get to interact and talk to you like this. And I hope you've been enjoying the other content that I've been posting as gap fillers as well. Oh my goodness. If there's one thing about my life is I've learned not to structure and plan things in a certain way because there's always going to be an unpredictable change in my life that will either set me back or to make me chill. And I always go back to this concept that I heard from my cousin, which is life is like a bow and arrow. Where you think you're being drawn back, it's actually life trying to hold you back in order for you to be propelled further than what you're currently doing. And ever since I've heard him say that, it's something that I've kept to my mind and heart up until now. So I guess with that also in mind, it puts me in a place to say, hey, sometimes we come up with a lot of quotes and interesting ideologies and analogies to explain life, but when you start living in them, that's when you start saying these things are really as powerful, but without actually focusing too much on the quotes and the life lessons that we can learn from one another. I think the most important part is to be human within everything that we interact, we do, and how we approach things when it comes to life. So, with that in mind, I think it's important for me to actually um, start with the biggest reason why I've been posting up many other videos because I was hoping to do like a series of conversations about what it takes to be a social worker, what it takes to be me. But then life just said, Tawanda, it ain't what you always plan, it's always about what you have to experience. So I guess that's something that I would say is the biggest lesson I've learned so far, 7 months into 2025. So I guess we can start with something simple. I would say I thank God for the blessings that He's granted upon my life. I thank Him for the spirit of discernment. I always put that as one of my top priority in prayer, not only in my practice, but in also just how I see my life when I'm around situations, places, and people where I just need that divine insight for the sake of preservation or for the sake of just trying to learn what life has in store for me. And I guess with that, it's important for me to always give thanks because no matter how bad a situation may be in life, there's always wisdom that is born from that bad experience, and that's like the stepping guide towards the life that you're destined to live. And this is something that I think is very important for me to share before I get into the makings of this entire video. So I would say yes, if you remember from the first video that I actually posted, which I'm so grateful it's at 100 views right now. And the one thing that I've been trying to do with this YouTube channel so far is I don't want to do paid promotions and all that just as yet. I just want to see if I'm getting this whole algorithm right, and if I'm getting this whole sharing and people viewing, liking, commenting, subscribing. I just need to just try and do this in a way that feels authentic for me, and then eventually put more, I guess, thought into making this something bigger than what it currently is right now. But for me, this is the biggest thing I really appreciate you all for, because I've always been nervous about doing this, but now I'm actually glad that I started, and that's the important part of life. So, doing a recap, starting from January, yes, I was so blessed to have Soto Voce approach me and say, yeah, can you be part of my show and we can have this? So, national TV appearance, not only once, but twice, I got to be on the psychotherapist show. And I think for me, that was such a huge milestone because growing up, I've always thought I was going to be on TV, but for other reasons. But then it turns out that life has a weird way of still putting you in that scenario, despite the fact that those reasons are not what I'm currently doing. But in the near future, it is something that I'm hoping to be serious about, and I just can't wait to see how that actually unfolds. So, yeah, I guess just to give you a breakdown before I go into things a lot more intimately and deeply. So, yes, there was the first two TV appearances, which I am so blessed and grateful for. Shout out to Soto Voce, I appreciate you. Then came a time where I started my master's at MSU, and this to me was more of a forced calling. Now, I'm going to explain why I'm calling it a forced calling. I remember when I finished my degree, and this was way before I graduated. There was a job offer that came through LinkedIn, and it said, yeah, we would like to take you in because we like what you're doing, but you need to specialize. You got to do your master's. And believe you me, I had no intention of doing masters because I was like, oh, I'm done with this bachelor's. Can I just take a break? But then this job offer, it had masters lingering at the back of my mind. And I said, you know what? Maybe I should give it a shot and see how that's gonna go. So eventually I did apply. I got accepted. First semester's done, and believe you me, I normally am a humble person. So let me put it at the scale. This is my level of humbleness, right? Masters took me way down. I'm sure you can't see my hands now because I think I'm out of the frame, but I've been humbled. And I think that's the only word I can describe this journey into my masters, where I'm like, jeez, does it really have to be like this? But I'm glad that I got to do it at my age right now, and where I still have the patience for this, because if I was working or had a family and you're telling me to deal with what I've dealt with in my first semester, yeah, I would have been like, deuces. So, anyways, the forced, gosh, I forgot the other word that I used. But anyways, the other reason why I also did masters as well is I've always loved the clinical path of doing either psychotherapy, or now I realize that social work is a bit more broad, and that's why I love this profession more than anything. Not that I'm not going to go back to do psychology, because I feel like I'm going to do that at some point in my life, but I needed to do this clinical social work. I needed to specialize and do more of my work in a more in-depth sort of perspective. And this is why you find I'm actually so excited that the next semester it's now when we properly get into the clinical path of what it takes to be a clinical social worker. So, never mind, masters, it was good and all that stuff. Then came a time where I nearly got detained. Lord Jesus, if there was a time in my life where I thought I'd be in the cop shop about to get detained, and you're told that you're gonna go to court to prove your case, I'm just like, no, this can't be me. This is definitely not me. I've never ever been in a situation where I have trouble with the law or police, but not something to really go in deep about. So I think that was the first thing that kind of like swayed me off from having to create this video, because I was just not in the right mind and space after that experience. And for some that are hearing this for the first time, believe you me, it wasn't because I didn't want to share or tell you, but I myself needed to process the aspect of going through that experience and what it means to be a social worker, to be experiencing that, you know. And come that happened actually, wait, during a time where I was waiting for my results for like the first block, and now I was getting into the second block, got into the exams, and my goodness, I think I was just going through it. Then, oh yeah, just before that detention incident, I had to leave a certain organization because there was again a lot going on. So I think to me, 2025 has been more of a humbling experience where I needed to learn and be taught a lot of things that I won't say I was cocky about, but I would say I overlooked and became more confident about myself as a being and as a social worker. So I think now I've given you a gist of what transpired. I think now let me start from the front, going back, because that's another reason why I needed to also do this video. The past month of June has been a month of pure rest, especially for me. I needed that time for myself. I mean, it got so bad to the point where, for those that are watching, if I wasn't responding to your messages, if I wasn't coming through in the events and things that were going on, or if there were things that I was meant to actually do but eventually had no energy to get up to it, I was going through what I normally dismiss, and that is called burnout. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, myselfly. I was drained. I don't know why, but it just felt like I needed to stop. And the world did stop along with me. As exaggerated as that might sound, but the reality is I was going through it. So here's the thing about burnout that some people might take for granted, which I did, but it's important for me to express the aspect of how people go through it differently. So I remember whenever I would talk to people about the work that I do, they would always ask, how are you handling your burnout? How are you dealing with the stress? And I always used to say I have a good way of managing stress. And I try to balance my day and my schedules and the things that I do in such a way that I always have time for self care, self love, and also self introspection. And the interesting thing about that was it did work for me. But I've realized that sometimes we actually suppress certain things and some things remain in our subconscious for a while. And that put me in a place where I think because I had it in mind that this month I have nothing planned, I have nothing scheduled, I have nothing that I'm committing to. So I think my body just said, this is it. Crash and burn to wonder. Crash and burn. And you know what? I did. So I think just to bring it back a little more further, I got to a place where I needed this time for myself. I was sleeping long hours, but I wasn't resting. I had no energy to respond to anybody. I would just get into messages, come out. But then I subconsciously tell myself that I still need to go back and say something, or to at least give an explanation. And still, that wasn't easy though. So I think what I've learned about burnout, especially when it comes to me, is that I think my cup for all the pressure, all the stress, and all this anxiety and everything going on, it was quite large. This is why it was easy for me to balance things without it overflowing. But when it came to this moment where the cup felt like I don't have the energy to balance what's in it, it's time to drain it out and you can start afresh. And that's the whole process that I had to go through. And why was I going through all of this? Now, let's start from the beginning. Right. So, Masters was a good start. Of course, there was a lot of pressure. And believe you me, 1 week of intense learning is not a joke. Trying to fit in everything, trying to make sense of everything. And I think what I find interesting about this master's journey is that it's not about your knowledge and application. It's just that sometimes you're mentally put in a state where you can't even write the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. And I think that was the shocker for me, that I understand the concept, I understand the application, and I understand what I'm supposed to do, but I just can't apply it. So again, I just kept going. You know, one thing about my life that I always had in motion since, I think, primary school. I think primary school was a great motivation for that. I always used to tell myself that progression is far much better than retrogression. And I never wanted anything that would make me take steps backwards. So it was important for me to always make sure that I propel, I move forward, I get to the next step. Huh, clouds, thank you. Anyways, so with that in mind, I think it got to a place where it gave me a lot of exposure. I always used to put other people first and situations first above my own interests, above my own sanity, and above my own reasoning. And that led me to a certain fallout that, honest to God, if I had any other ways, changes, or plans for me to avoid this inevitable move, I would have had it. But it was time for me to leave. And the reason why I'm not going to mention the name of the organization is because I don't want to make it seem like an all attention, hey, this is me, this is what happened. But as I've always said to people, you're going to be somebody else's story, and you're going to be involved in that other person's life. So, depending on how good or how bad you are, if that person has to express their story, they're just gonna have to. So I'm not gonna do it to avoid all other issues that may come with it. But it's important for me to just express the fact that yes, I left because there was a whole lot of conflict. It was a whole toxic environment, and to be frank, it was putting me in a place where I realized that I was being told to be broken down, to somewhat like shrink to accommodate other people, or that my energy or my light or my gift or my spirit was, well, my light was so bright that I needed to not switch it off but to dim to accommodate. I think that for me was the most positive insult I've had in my entire life. Insults are never positive, but in that regard, oh, I imagine somebody giving you a compliment or praising you, but at the same time they're telling you that it's a bad thing, even though this is a good thing about you. And I don't hold nothing against the idea of what it is to be part of the team, what it is to experience things with the team. But if you're telling me that the team isn't happy with me because of the attention I get or because of the gift and talent that I express, I'm just there like, maybe I'm just not in the right place, you know? And I wish people knew that my sincerest intention was never to take over. If there's one thing about me, and I think I'm gonna put this as a recording, and not only to hold myself accountable in the future, but it's also a reminder to myself. I could easily start my own organization right now and propel it further forward and do whatever. But I've noticed that there's a difference between being a manager and a leader. I do not have it as natural for me to be like the director or CEO who's managing an entity and taking it further to where it's supposed to go to. I could do it, but it's not up my forte. But when it comes to the aspect of leadership, I love enhancing and making things better than they actually are. I like being the support, being in the background, making sure that, okay, I know you're doing it this way, but imagine if you did it this way, what greater impact would it have, and how much more networking and people would we have as a result of doing things differently? So I've actually learned from that experience. Now, this is something that's very positive for me to share with a whole lot of people. And it's the one thing I've been telling people about, maybe the reason why I've left, and probably not wanting to get into the drama and the nitty gritties of things. Because some people that were part of it and with it, or to experience it, or to see it, they told me a lot. And I was so oblivious to that. I was so oblivious. Because I remember every single time I would have a friend tell me, Tawanda, do you know you're not meant to be in this space? Do you know you're supposed to see things differently? You're supposed to do this. And all the time I would take that in and say, I don't see it. I don't feel it. But sometimes when somebody tells you something, just take a second to process what they say. Not to think about it, but to process. Because it might actually help you in a way that, had I taken that advice a lot more sooner, it wouldn't have had this greater impact in how not only I left, but it was at a time where I guess I wasn't ready to go. So, back to the important part that I've learned about this whole experience. I've learned that at the end of the day, it's not about who you are as a person. It's not about the people that are going to accommodate the sort of person that you are. Sometimes when you're not meant to be in a certain space, all aspects of nature will remove you out of that space. Be it spiritually, be it mentally, be it nature itself. Trust, listen to your surroundings, and you would learn that life has a way of trying to protect you or to forewarn you. And I think for me, it was me realizing that there was nothing wrong with these guys. Absolutely nothing wrong. It's just that unfortunately, I was not meant to be in that space. So we move along. We move along. And to show you that God has a way of testing me, I've always told people, sometimes I feel like I'm playing chess with God. He knows the move that I'm going to make, but at the end of the day, He's like, child, I want you to learn the process of chess. I want you to think of what this move and that move will do. Yes, I might win, but the point is, I need you to see how we're going to play this game. And guess what? That's when another incident occurred. So April should be the 12th or 13th. I will never forget, it was a Saturday. I volunteer with the organization TSK, the Street Kitchen, ZW, and it's an amazing organization. So I think to just give you a bit of background, I met the founder, Chris, through another organization. And believe you me, I loved his work, his motivation, the reason why he started it. And it made me say I needed to change my bias and opinion about children living in the streets. So I said, let me just join you and see what you're all about. And if I really enjoy the experience, I might actually then tag along and be part of the work that you guys do. So TSK's main objective is to rehabilitate children living in the streets back into the normal society. And we can only do that by building rapport through giving them food every Saturday morning. So I remember the very first thing that I had a challenge to commit to is having to wake up by 4 p.m. No, I can't say p.m. No, 4:30 a.m. on a Saturday to make sure that I'm in town by 6 p.m. Why am I using p.m.? You see, this is exactly why I have issues with my weekend. Don't wake me up on a weekend before 7 a.m. This is my time to rest. But guess what? With TSK, I had to be up by 4:30 a.m., had to be in town by 6 a.m., so that we start the distribution from 6:30 a.m. up until 8:30 a.m. And I remember the first time when I was told that that's the times that they do their distributions. I literally laughed and I said to Wanda, am I able to do this? Because I'm used to the system of high school and primary school where Monday to Friday are like your work days. This is the time you're going to school and whatever. Then when it comes to the weekend, it's your time to rest. And being an SDA, a Seventh day Adventist, Seventh day Saturday for me is more of my rest day. However, it then put me in a place to say, okay, do I do things on a Saturday? Yep, after 9 a.m. But now I gotta be up before. And I was like, okay. So, anywho, I got over that hurdle. I was committed to it. I think it's been a year I've been with TSK, and it's been so amazing. The stories and testimonies that I've heard, some were so heartbreaking. And I think the one thing that still stuck with me is the fact that most of these children didn't feel safe at home, and they found safety in the streets of Harare, Central Business District. And for me, that was it was moving, because I asked myself, I'm at home. I've got a home too, like they had. But in this case, they just had a house, whilst I have a home. And I looked around and I said, would I give up what I have right now? Sleeping under the roof, sleeping in a comfortable bed, having a decent meal. Would I forego all of that just to live in the street? But for me, it just opened up my eyes to realize that they're coming from a lot of trauma, abuse, dysfunctional families, broken homes, just to escape that hell to survive in the streets. That is huge. That is huge. So, with that in mind, it put me in a place to say I needed to know more. I needed to hear not only about where they're coming from, but how are they surviving in the streets? How are they making it? And there were certain testimonies that, up until now, if I'm not mistaken, I still have a video of someone that gave their testimony. And despite the fact that they gave me their consent to share and talk about it, it still haunts me with the information that I heard from him, that I just said to myself, am I even ready to want to, do the editing and have that story put out there? And I know it might seem like I'm doing misjustice towards this guy, but it's just that impact that it has, where you're saying to yourself, before I actually put this out there, how best can I help and make sure that his life is a little better? And the difference between this guy and every other child that I've interacted with, he's a bit more level headed. He understands the consequences of, drug and substance abuse. He's one person who seems well articulate in not only his storytelling and his experiences on the street, but in how he's also trying to help his fellow brethren and sisters to get off the street and have some semblance of a normal life. So I thought to myself, there will come a right time and a right place for me to share the story. And I think it's about the intention, because in as much as we want to share this for you guys to see and know what was going on, it's about sharing it to make sure that you guys understand that children living in the streets are not thugs, drug abusers, thieves, as how the stereotypes and the world perpetuates them to be. These are just children who are broken, who have trauma, who are trying to survive. And yeah, it made me see things in a different light. Whew. I'm gonna take a moment.